right. Hello. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Hello, everyone. Paul Trani here, diving into Photoshop Masterclass compositing on iPad and desktop. Big thank you to Terry White, T. White, the one and only, for tackling some photography organizing. Who doesn't need to organize their photos, right? Everybody needs to. So good to see you, Steve from New Zealand. Sweet. Volnetas. Andreas, hello. Mariana, you are too kind. I want to favorite that comment. Thanks for liking my work. And the short of it is, yes, I want you to be inspired. I want you to, of course, learn new things. I want you to build a portfolio and ultimately like a happy life, whatever that means to you. I think that's reasonable enough. Anna Brackett's in the house, always a lovely person. Anna, I just really adore you. You're just the best. So it's good to see you, Anna. Lisa as well, and Anita. Cool. So we're going to composite on desktop, as it says over there, and iPad. So we'll do some work on both and kind of talk about when you do one or the over the other. Just kind of expose you to actually some new features also on iPad. I think it's easy to work with. And yes, does it need more? Certainly. Yeah. You know what? And I need whiter teeth. Sure, I get it. But, as we add new features, I'll be sure to update you as well. So selecting and cutting out, matching color and brightness, overall tonal changes, kind of what can you do on your, on your desktop and iPad. And feel free to get inspired, by the way. I'm just on Behance, by the way. You can come in here and discover new work. So I'm in the Discover tab right here. See the best of Behance. You can go into Photoshop, for instance, and see all the cool work that you could do in Photoshop. Everybody's style's different. A lot of these are very Illustrator-like, if you will. And we can get into some painting, but it's going to be painting on photos. So again, some more commercial work, some fun work. Go out there, get inspired. I was hugely inspired by Magdiel Lopez's work, by the way, who happens to be currently my favorite designer these days, and we had him in this week. And Magdiel L-O-P, he just redid his website, but you can always see his work. I don't want to but again, I can't help but be influenced by his work. We might not do anything this crazy, but we can get inspired by it. So let's go ahead and let's composite a chicken image. Kendris, if I had a chicken, I would consider that. But yeah, if that's your style, to be playful and all that, then go for it. I have a couple different images. We can see them right here. One we literally took yesterday. By the way, it's what can you do with this when it comes to compositing? How can this, a photo that you take literally with your iPhone or whatever, and how can it inspire you? But not only that, I'm going to make sure that this is connected. Give me 1 second. A code will pop up on my screen. Please pop up on my screen. Code. Oh, come on. There it is, 2316. So for sharing this content, if you guys are curious, I get a lot of questions on how to share content, how to, the technical setup. I'm actually using a reflector right now because otherwise I'd have too many cables. But you could see kind of what I have going on here. This is Photoshop on the iPad. And again, something that we can work on. We can see those layers there. But again, kind of start with something pretty simply, but we'll work in some text. So that's the goal. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. I'm going to get to designing right now, and I'll just put that in the background and set it off to the side. Okay. Let me know if you have questions. Vilentas, he inspired a lot of people. It's why do you have to be so cool? And the more people I talk to, the upper echelon of designers, and I'm making a sweeping generalization, but some of the best designers out there, they are also the nicest people. It's it's just hard to be a jerk in the industry for a long time. That's the short of it. So kind of working on this one, we could easily kind of do some quick compositing in here. There's a couple different things going on. I would typically jump that layer, Command J, create a duplicate, maybe actually convert it to a smart object. When I convert it to a smart object, I can go into filter. And again, these are the easiest global changes that you can make. When it comes to compositing. Camera, raw, filter. Okay, so jumping in here. If you want an easy button, and Andrew knows this. Andrew Kavanaugh, good to have you, buddy. But right in here, we can come over here and we can try this. I'm just saying we can try it. This is potentially an easy button, but rather than me manipulating all these, I could try the auto. And that's typically what I'll do. I'll jump in, I'll hit auto, and I actually did a pretty good job with this photo, kind of brightening it up. So again, before and after, one click away. And you can see it increased the exposure, the contrast, took down the highlights, and I can play with this like a little bit more as well. Like I might want to bring a little bit of it in, but we'll try that out in a second. So just do some simple compositing. I'll keep the texture and clarity kind of where it is, but this is an overall adjustment is what I'll typically need to do with a photo when I first get it. It's like, let's do global adjustments and then we'll do local adjustments. And this is the process for compositing, right? You typically, images are too dark. You brighten it up, right? And then you go into local adjustments, working on the fact that, you know what, I could use some more highlights on this side of my face. So what I'll do there is I'll do Command J to jump this layer as well. So we have our, main, what's called this, Paul. And then we're gonna have like the blue side right here, right? For this blue side, what do we wanna do? Well, guess what? We can go back into Camera Raw, right in here, Camera Raw filter, just by double clicking on it, since it's a smart object. And I can crank up the contrast or the exposure. And really all I'm doing is focusing on this side. There's so many things I could do. I'm getting ahead of myself as I think about this. Yeah, thank you, Howard. That's exactly right. Moral of the story, don't be a jerk. Do things so you could sleep at night. My whole goal is just to get a good night's sleep, right? And you can't be a jerk and sleep well at night, in my opinion. So a couple of different ways that I can work this out. I can go ahead and crank up this exposure, click OK, and we can see the difference between 1 and 2, okay? And from there, I can add a layer mask, by the way, right down here. We'll click adding a layer mask. I'll hold down the Option key when I do that, and it gives me this black layer mask right over here. So it all disappeared, right? But I can start painting in, Command B, or excuse me, B for brush, closing bracket, make it larger. I'm just using my mouse, and I can start to paint on just like some of these highlights. They're a little intense, so let's undo that. And like a lot of people do, is take down that flow. So my flow just kind of always kind of changes. I don't think there's a shortcut for this, for the flow, but I notice I need to modify the flow a lot. So let's just go like 20, 19, 20, kind of around there, and just kind of build up slightly because it was a little intense when I first clicked. Like the eyes right here, a lot of times if you're doing any sort of portrait work, you want the eyes to pop. Definitely like add a little bit more in there and you get the idea, like so. Okay, cool. That looks pretty good before and after. Okay. All due respect to those that are only 3 years old. Kendris, as you say in chat. God bless you. You're 3 years old. Okay, so that's one way of working. And I know Andrew Kavanaugh, other people are like, oh, there's different ways to do this. There certainly is, right? Because I can actually add that highlight in Camera Raw as well. So going back into Camera Raw, so imagine I didn't do that highlight layer, because right over here, guess what? We can have an adjustment brush right up here at the top, clicking right here, rather than painting on a layer mask and doing that exposure. Anna did that a lot, by the way. Anna McNaught did a lot of that this week during the live stream. But if I select that brush now right over here, I'll just make sure the exposure's up a little bit, but now I can kind of come in and paint with this exposure brush is what I'm doing, right? That's what I'm doing. And the cool thing about it, I can move this around. This is what I just painted. Hopefully you could see that, but I'm just painting on that side of the face, like so. All right, just like that. Let's add some more highlights in the hair, and that's the exposure brush, which works fantastic, okay? Conversely, I can come over here and on this side of the face, right, is I can paint, let's do this. This is a good question for... I want a new brush, by the way. There we go, painting over here on this side. So I added a highlight over here. That actually looks pretty good, but it gets to be like a little hot. So actually my goal off to the side was to make it a little darker right here. So I clicked a third time, right? And by the way, maybe somebody who uses Camera Raw more than me knows, but I actually just would switch tools, and then when I go back to that tool, that's when it creates a new brush, okay? But I also want to make sure right over here that it says new brush and not to add, okay? Because in this case, if I click on this, oh, this whole area that I'm clicking on right now, I want to make it darker. Let's just bring that down like so, right? We're creating that nice depth, taking that exposure down like so. Clicking OK, done. Cool. Okay, Steve has Zoom It. I think Zoom It is what I use, by the way. Here's Zoom It, by the way. So this helps for you just being able to see in the stream, but also built into Mac is under accessibility. You can zoom in as well. Okay, so from there we can add some nice sparkles. Since this is all about compositing, I want to get on the iPad as well. I'm just going to quickly jump in here and create like a dot, just like that. Okay, for this little dot, we can add an adjustment, a layer style, and add an outer glow to this particular burst, right? So from there, we can come in, change this to blue. We get more of that blue highlight like so. Okay, so that's what I'm doing at this point. For blending options, and this is something I learned from Anna this week, and I knew about it and then I forgot about it. This just works out well in case you want to give images a pop. Transparency shapes layer. Play with that actually. It actually doesn't pop as much as I would expect it to. But play with that as well. That didn't make it change as much. It might be the background that it's on. Let's go back in there. Outer glow, let's crank it up. Blending options. Transparency shapes layer. It does okay work. But again, outer glow, I actually kind of like where it was before. Maybe it's set to overlay. You get the idea. That's done. The cool thing about this is once I add that like little layer style to this particular layer, guess what? This could become my sparkle layer. Like that. Zoom out. Brush, right? Clicking again by changing the size. Boom. Clicking again by changing the size. Boom. You guys know how to do this, but this is also a lot of work. Oh, you have to set it to color dodge first. Joseph, are you telling me some things? Let's try it. Ooh, color dodge, love it. Blending options. Turning that off. Either way, I really love color dodge. Color dodge looks really good. But again, I'm dealing with this outer glow, and it's going to change all of them, obviously, since they're all on this one layer. So I can continue to paint on this one layer. They're all going to have that nice glow, which I like, right? And that can be sort of off to the side. There's some sparkles there. We can add more to it as well. We can add a new layer and work some more. Hello, Kendris. Every day, Anita, I'm making myself more of a silver fox, seeing as my hair gets more and more gray every day. Actually, every time I go into the salon, I have them add more gray. It's so embarrassing. All right, so we have some glows going on there. We will open up the brushes panel, which we have right here. I'll move that over there, and we'll actually open up the brush settings as well. So brush settings is right there. Thank you for opening up both of those. Let's nest those off to the side. Brush settings, B for brush. Now they're active. Now we can play with some of these options. Brush tip shape, sure. I want to get in the shape dynamics. And rather than me adjusting the size, just do it randomly. Rather than me scatter it, let's have it do the scattering, right? You get the idea. Pretty straightforward. There's no angle on it, but you get the idea. Okay, so again, this is just if you get tired. I'm lazy, sure, but now we can just click a couple times and add a few more, as I'm doing right now, to add and work on these sparkles. For these ones, I actually might drop them down to something like overlay. So we have two sides now. We have sparkle layer 1, sparkle layer 2. You get the idea. All right. Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, Lindsay. Lindsay's like, women don't, there's no silver silver fox for women. There's no equivalent term for women, which I'm sorry about that. I don't know what to tell you. Not bad. I'll grab, if you hold down, hopefully you know this, if you hold down the Option key, you can copy layer styles and layer masks, most things. So that's what I want to do here. I already made this outer glow. I'm going to hold down the Option key, click and drag with that Option key, and it just applies it. Same thing here. If I want to do Option key, click and drag, it applies it. Okay. Fun little pro tip for you, since this is a masterclass. So I have some sparkles on that side. I'm going to move through this really fast, by the way. In fact, I'll just duplicate this because I want to get on the iPad, and I actually want to work on other things. My plan was not to really get into this like too much, but in this case, I want them to not be blue, but to be red, like so. Let's crank it up. You get the idea. Do something like that. Cool, cool, cool. Right, we have all those fun sparkles. You get the idea. All right, cool. There's more we could do with this. I think this is absolutely fine. I will say, here's the note I'm going to end on for this is like making things look really shiny. Because when I was adding all of those various adjustment brushes in Camera Raw, or if I'm actually just working with a layer, right, that has Camera Raw applied to it, or if I'm using, in fact, I'll do it right now. Let's go. Let's do it. Level, or excuse me, curves. We'll go into curves. We'll just play with this. We'll play with curves a couple times. Curves does some interesting things because it can really make those highlights pop. I'm going to do curves actually more like a curve, obviously, right? It's going to dip more down into greens, but play with this a little bit and decide, hey, you know what? This might work for some of the photo. In fact, I think it works right over here for the blue side. So again, like we learned a second ago, Option key, drag that up. Maybe that won't work. Yes, there we go. Thank you. Replace layer mask. Boom. And we can give things a lot of shine using curves, right? You just really have to crank it up, just so you know, as I do that. One more time on the other side. Wait for it. Curves. Crank it up. This time I'm kind of focusing on this side of my face, and I like these highlights is kind of what I want to bring into play. But it's going to add more dimension to this particular portrait, right? We will invert it. Command I, B for brush. I was playing a lot with this brush, but I could always reset it. I could save my current brush or just reset it. Just click right up here, reset tool. Just reset it back to the defaults. Again, if you are if you don't have something saved already. And I can paint on those highlights. See what I did right there with that nice highlight? That came from the curves, right? There was some on my ear. I could do that as well. So again, before, after, just a little bit of pop. And again, I can just play with that, add as much of it as I want, just to give it a little bit more color depth is all I'm doing. Okay, done. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on that one. Welcome, everybody. Feel free to say hello if I haven't heard from you in a little bit. I just would like to say hi to people. And I'm just glad I'm not talking to myself. So another good one is mouse pose. If you're talking about ways to highlight your screen. I don't know if I have it running or if it's updated. I can give you like, I have so many, yeah, mouse pose might not be running. But mouse pose is the one that will make the entire screen darker except for that one part where your mouse is. So that's another go-to. Dama Chan, there we are. What's up, Dama Chan? Good to see you. Israel Macias, warm welcome to you as well. Marina Sabrana, awesome, cool. So do that. This was actually done with a light called a bowling light. But anyways, so let's kind of move on to iPad. There's some things I actually want to kind of do with this. There's some other flower images that I kind of want to play with. So many things I want to do. I'm kind of interested in... Yeah, so yeah. And by the way, like Anna is the one that brought the light. She brought that light. And that's why we did this. And then I went out and bought the same light. So I bought that same bowling. So the blue one's mine, the red one's hers. And not that you can't change the colors, but that's kind of how it ended up. We have this one as well that I was working on, right? In terms of compositing, we can go from this to something maybe a little more interesting. And I think this might be a case where we might want to actually use good old Photoshop on the iPad. So I'm kind of opening up the final, but I might actually jump over to using this file on my iPad. I'm going to use a couple different files. So I'm going to go ahead and save this as, and this is where Cloud Documents come into play. So save to Cloud Documents. Clicking right there, I'm going to say it to woman plant face, because that's what's going to be happening. Save. Now that's available on my iPad. Okay. Yeah, give that woman a beard and a mustache. If I was to do that, I definitely would find some source photos, and then I would try to get some like hair brushes that will enable me to kind of blend things together, right? But yeah. I'm sorry this stream is seizing on you, Aunt Anita, but you're probably not hearing that if it's seizing on you. Everything actually looks fine to me on my side. Everything. Oh, maybe it did just do a little something something. All right. All right, cool. Yeah, there was a little hiccup there. I'm back now. So yes. Yeah, sorry for the little hiccup there. Let's go ahead and go to... Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Move this over. Too many wires. And I like working hands-free. Like what we see here. Here's Photoshop on the iPad, as you can see. You can see Cloud Documents, right? Selecting right here. We'll see it load in, hopefully, my files. By the way, I can go in to File, Open, and I can go to Cloud Documents, and we can see woman plant face right here. Here's another thing I do with these Cloud Documents as well. I can actually view these in the browser of this computer. Assets, adobe.com/cloud documents, right? So that particular file, let's take a look. It's going to load in all those Cloud Documents. There it is. It might be a little large, by the way, and that's why I'm currently probably not getting the thumbnail and why it's not quite loading in. So let's take a look at it back out here. It's just for the sake of time. Just like that. And I'm glad that came up. Yes, you could load any size file. As long as you have that amount of room on your iPad, everything should be fine. And take into consideration bandwidth as well. Okay. But yeah, we'll see that file saved to Cloud Documents. We'll just call woman plant. Done. Okay. Sorry about that. I might actually just kind of dive into this other project while this syncs as well. So let's switch back. Boop. Here we are. We can kind of hide that. Everything. Yeah, that's it. Here we are. Let's just kind of dive into this one, for instance. Let's open this file. And I actually have a couple different versions of... There we go. Reading that file. Let's dive into this. I'll show you some new things. All right. Rasim with the jokes. The man's got jokes. I'm into it. All right. So here's something I was actually just playing with. That's the goal, to make something like that. No, I have an image right in here, and I can bring in other images from my camera roll, from files, from Creative Cloud, obviously, from Box or Dropbox, right? I keep a lot of things in libraries, so I can jump in here, go to Nature, right? Because I happen to have a bunch of these images. So selecting this one, we can bring this in, click done. So here's this particular file. I kind of want to make this fun composite. From here, typically you would, let's move this to the top and hide everything. But these are the two views. I can see this view. I can see the expanded detail view. Looks more like Photoshop on the desktop. From here, what I really need to do is I just need to select these elements. You'll go in here and maybe you'll use the lasso tool. Maybe you'll use the quick selection tool to kind of go in and grab that stuff. Well, you don't really need to do that because as of Tuesday, you have a couple new options in here. One of them being select subject. This is literally what I use on the desktop. So selecting select subject, it selects that subject, which happens to be the butterfly as well as the flowers, right? From there, we can just hit mask. It masks it out, right? It does what we want it to. Super easy, right? Let's undo that, okay? Because there's more details going on here. And let's just deselect that. Because let's say, for instance, I really just want this butterfly. So just do a long press there. We have the lasso tool, but guess what? We have the select subject tool. So let me try to zoom in on that for my friends. There we go. So you see this tool right here that I'm selecting right now. This is the select subject tool, okay? It has a couple different settings. So I have it selected. Select subject, and I can actually just drag around the subject that I want, which happens to be just this butterfly. Okay, I'm going to do this very loose and very fast. It may or may not grab everything. You could actually did a really good job. It grabbed everything except side R, add to the selection, remove, or intersect. Okay, and then also we have these additional settings, which is all about using the lasso tool, which is what I was just using, right? But we could change that as well. So these are kind of maybe Edge does, by the way, just saying. All right, but those are the settings. Let's go in here. Let's add to. Let's kind of draw around that particular part, and it selects it. And then just grabbing what I want. You get the idea. All right. Yeah, Darian, by the way, is asking about Adobe Audition. Yeah, we do. The place for that is Jason Levine, and he is coming up next as part of the Adobe Live schedule. So he's going to be up next doing sound design in Adobe Audition. He said, he actually told me personally, I think there's this guy Darian that wants to learn about Audition. So I think I'm going to do a live stream for him. So that's up next. So yeah, thank you, Steve. Looks like you answered as well. So perfect. You got it. So we have this selected. Guess what? What do? We mask it out. Done. Just like that. We could take this, scale it into place like I'm doing right now, put it on that particular flower, right? Done, right? Not quite done yet. You see those shadows, by the way, on that particular flower. We want to sell this a little bit more. Let's add a new layer. Let's flip it to black. Let's go to a brush, do a long press on that brush, and we have a soft round and other settings, by the way, that I might get into. But I just want to do a soft round, and let's undo that just by tapping with 2 fingers. Change the size of the brush. Want it to be much smaller. Let's take that down like so, right? Take that down a little bit lower. Technically, this should be the same opacity as the shadow underneath, right? So this already has maybe a little bit too much of a smoothness to it. So guess what? I can jump in here and change the hardness, the smoothness, hardness. So, okay, so there we go. That's what we have. We can start to paint on it. Obviously, that's super intense. What do? We have options for that particular layer, taking down the opacity, right? So I can take down the opacity and start to paint in what I want. I might undo that a couple times because I think this just needs more help. Right, like so. I'm just painting that on. It has to be just like something pretty subtle. You get the idea. Okay, done. Fine. Shadows. Oh, well played. Kendrick, that's a great idea. That is a great idea, and I need to think about that. That's a great idea. You know? We're already doing that in Dimension, by the way. So that, like, the technology is there. It's not like it's not possible. Okay, so let's kind of click through that. We can see that there's my monarch butterfly. I could add actually more to it. I'm going to fast forward like a little bit because I have like a number of butterflies that I'm adding to this scene. Let's show you all those. Here's all these fun butterflies that I've already cut out that I can move around appropriately. But really what I want to do is I want to add some text to it. So here's just some text. We're going to go with like biodiversity right in here, kind of drop that like so. And actually the first thing I want to do is I want diversity to be behind the butterfly and behind some of the flowers. We could do the same thing with this rendered image. I happen to render it in Adobe Dimension, but we'll start with that rendered image. In fact, you know what? We're going to duplicate this layer. Duplicating it, we're going to do something similar, and let's actually turn off that butterfly that we just made, right? Using our select subject tool off to the side, just drawing a big circle around it, like so, and making sure we're on the right layer. So rendered image right down here, just drawing a circle over it, right? And then it snaps to it. Same thing right here. I think I will grab this flower, maybe these, just a number of these organic elements. Some parts I still need to grab. Let's try this. Same tool, boom. Yeah, that's really happening. Isn't this nice? Like I'm just kind of drawing these circles over it on my iPad. In this case, I need to subtract. Let's come in here and subtract this area. Like that, done. Let's add 2. So hopefully you're into this. I'm really into this. But look at that. Like I don't have to be as exact as I thought I would have to be, right? Just using the select subject tool. Add your own sound effects, whatever you want to do. Some of these don't even matter. I don't even know why I'm doing this bottom part because I just need to kind of mask out the parts. I just need the letters to be behind these flowers, and only a couple of them. And this is another one. As I grab it, like so, you can see this part. Let's try this stem. Jumping in there, surrounding it, boom, it has it. Yeah. That butterfly's on a different layer. Keep that in mind. Done. Right? What do? We mask it. Boom. Done. Let's turn off some of these other layers. You can see here is everything that got masked. I'm so sorry, Michelle. I'm freaking... Why do I use butterflies all the time? I have no idea. I have no idea. It's like butterflies and flowers on everything. I recently, my mom sent me like a little note, something that I drew when I was a kid, and guess what was on it? A bunch of flowers. I was drawing a bunch of flowers. She just sent me that this week. I thought it was funny. Okay, so with that layer done, it happens to be this layer of flowers. I'll move that up. Currently, we have that underneath the text. I'm going to put it on top of the text, like so. We'll turn that background back on, and this is more along the lines of what I want. Using the text tool, I'm going to get into some of these like new features that we have. We'll do diver, we'll break that line. Obviously, we have a huge issue with the leading of this text, but this is brand new in Photoshop on the iPad as of Tuesday as well. All of these fun settings that we have. Okay, so what I was doing is I was just playing with the leading right here. Notice it'll probably only go up to 300. You could type whatever you want in there. So if you think it only goes so far, well then just access that text field, change it accordingly. As we take a look down here, we have more options that I'm going to be dealing with right now. Let's get out of that. And I have about 15 minutes. All right, fantastic, Darian. I'm glad you're getting a lot out of this. I could make this all caps. Ooh, auto leading. I could make this all caps as I click on it. I don't think that's really doing it any favor. I think the lowercase are more organic. And since these shapes are organic, that's kind of what I want to go with. The big thing, the one job type needs to do is be legible. So I'm going to make sure this is legible, but I'm going to have some fun with it because it's big, it's white, it's in the center. Hey, we could have some fun with it. Okay, how can we have some fun with it? Well, let's take this I, for instance. And guess what? I can control, say, the baseline shift. We can kind of move that I up like that. We'll take this S that I can't really see, shift it up as well. Take this Y down here. Let's vertically scale it and then move it down like so. So that's what I'm doing, just having some fun with these letters, since I have full control over what the letters can do at this point. I'm not really seeing the E too well, so let's move this down. Let's play with the tracking for everything. Tighten it up like that. Right? Does that work? Tell me how you guys, what you think. Am I making it better? I hope so. Biodiversity. Let's move the whole thing up a little bit. Tell me. Awesome. Yeah, you were able to make a cartoon from scratch. I don't know if you're using Adobe Animate. You could also use After Effects, and then also try Character Animator if you want it to talk. So this is coming out like okay, right? I could tell some of this type. I think I'm making any like typographers, like I'm probably giving them stress, knowing that I'm actually messing with this text and stretching it out. I think they would frown upon me scaling it, because actually I don't even think scaling it is doing it any favors, right? Let's take all this. Something like that. Let's grab that Y, shift it back up. Okay, that's what we'll do. Biodiversity. Cool. Guess what? We're on top of this. New layer. The brush. Yeah, we were working with this earlier. Let's undo that. Change the size. Change the smoothness or the hardness. And we can have some fun, which is like a little bit of lighting. Let's undo that a couple times. This is pretty intense. Flow. Taking the flow down like we did on the desktop. Right, and just adding a little bit of depth like so. So hopefully that works. A little intense there, but that's okay. We're just having some fun. What else do we have? I think we have most of our butterflies in there. And let's turn on the one that we actually cut out earlier. Something like that. Cool. Yeah, so Darian, all of these are being recorded. You'll see the replays. If you're on, just go to behance.net/live. Down below that, you'll see all the replays, categorized, all that fun stuff. Feel free to follow Creative Cloud on YouTube. Yeah, that should kind of give you an idea of compositing on iPad, right? Okay. There's my butterflies. Let's bring them up in front of everything. There they are. Beautiful. From there, I'd add some more shading and things like that. Here's a key thing, though, that I want to bring up as well, because anytime you're doing compositing, you need to match the color, the brightness, and color, right? So this actually, I got lucky. This looks really good. This is like daylight. But for this butterfly that I was working on, this monarch butterfly, turn that on and off. I could shift the colors maybe a little bit. I actually think it's pretty darn good. But right down here, with that layer selected, you can see Add Clipped Adjustment Layer. So let me go right over here and zoom in on that. So hopefully you can see right there, Add Clipped Adjustment Layer. So that's in one move, you're adding an adjustment layer and clipping it at the same time, which I think is pretty awesome. In this case, we're going to go into color balance, and we're going to shift this from blue to a little bit more of the yellow. Looks like it's not doing much of anything. We'll shift it. We're just shifting these colors slightly, basically. Getting rid of any blueness, because there's no blue in this scene. but making it a little bit more yellow. And again, we don't want it magenta. We want to make sure it's a little bit more yellow to kind of match that flower that it's on, because that's what it's trying to do, maybe blend in with the flower. Okay, done. You get the idea. You know, you have clipping, adjustment layers, and you can go up to the very top. And if you do a long press, let's undo that, a long press on that plus sign, you can add an adjustment layer over the whole thing. So that's what I'm gonna do at this point. Adjustment layer. Let's play with color balance again. Why not? And just kind of tweak this accordingly. There we could do something like that. Why not? Fantastic. 3 a.m., Kendrick? Well, Kendrick, aren't you 3 years old? Didn't you say you were 3 years old? Right, so I'm working on biodiversity copy, right? I don't have to save this. I'm gonna just click that home button. Biodiversity copy, you can see right over here, start syncing it to Creative Cloud, right? I don't have to save, do any of that stuff. It's just gonna take care of itself. I can go back to my desktop. And oh, by the way, here's my, somebody who asked earlier, like sort of like downloading where these files live. Currently, it's a cloud document, as the name would suggest. But right in here, you can see this little icon says that it's just not downloaded yet. So come in here on your iPad. Once you click on it, you can see it's going to go ahead and download it accordingly. It may take longer on slow connections. So if you are about to hop on a plane, make sure your files are downloaded, and then you can work per usual. So awesome. I'm going to open this file and we're going to play with it. Okay. Eric Sue's amazing. I want an Eric Sue that I could just put in my pocket, because he's just like so nice. You think everything I do is awesome. And boy, are you wrong. Just kidding. Okay, key thing to point out, if you are working from mobile to desktop, iPad to desktop, we get this little icon right here, this little question mark. This is actually a smart object. We know smart objects are some of the things that we need to implement. It's definitely on the list, and it's going to be huge. So it does read in the file, but technically it's just a pixel-based layer, right? So I can turn that off. These are the same things. Oops, why am I trying to use my mouse on my iPad? So let's move this over. That's kind of annoying, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that layer. Maybe duplicate this layer. Right, you know, doing one of those. Let's open this up again. All right, cool. That's loading in. Let's go ahead and take a preview at my final right here on my desktop. So this is what I'm working on. This is a little disconcerting. I get it. I'm still working on it. We have these eyes. What's a little disconcerting is they're off a little bit. So let me just try to grab this. It's going a little slow. There we go. Like these eyes are off a little bit and it's a little disconcerting. So we'll take the left eye as well, kind of moving that over. You get the idea. So anyways, this is kind of just a fun composite to work on, right? Just try something new that you maybe haven't done before. If I switch back to my iPad, right, we can kind of do the same thing using my lasso tool, doing this a little bit more free form, selecting this, maybe following the curve, and then going up like that, right? Kind of messed up that part. Hey, not a problem. Let's jump in. Smooth that out like so. Okay. For that face, what do? We're going to mask it out. Boom. There it is. Masked out. This is fascinating. Yeah. You get the idea. I'm not going to use that smart object layer. Smart objects aren't implemented, and I was working on a smart object, so I kind of had some issues. Selecting that, let's actually duplicate this layer. And you can see kind of what happens. It does look like Cara Delevingne. I love Cara Delevingne. I just think she's of course gorgeous. Okay. All right, so we'll just worry about that layer. We'll set this aside. We'll go back because I'm actually kind of winding down. I don't have a whole lot of time. Let's hide this. Again, object select tool, new type properties available as of Tuesday. Does it need more things? Yeah, I get it. But these are new things you didn't have Monday, you now have available to you. So that's the short of it. We'll actually kind of switch over to the desktop. There we go. Boop. Right in here. And kind of work on this on the desktop real fast. Oh yeah. Okay, cool. Boom, boom, boom. I can tell you the problems with this currently, like we could talk about design, by the way. Honestly, Eric, I think the issue is that I was working on a smart object is the best thing that I can tell. And smart objects aren't implemented yet, so that's what I think what's happening. A couple issues with this. These eyes need to be lined up. It's a little disconcerting when I move them off. And it's all about, in this case, it's all about like beauty. I don't know. It's like if they're off a little bit, it's just a little weird. I should probably keep the eyes like lined up so it's not too disconcerting. Is the goal, okay? And not only that, what I can do is I can take actually all three, the layers, the lips, the eyes, move those off to the side like that. But let's kind of pick this apart because I think this will be fun to kind of figure out how this design was done. And you probably know kind of based on what we've talked about already. I'm going to show you some new things as well. I've actually been using patterns, right? So patterns are awesome. Been using smart objects. You can see those in here. Smart objects with blurs, obviously, to match that depth. So let's turn those off. It's getting a little freaky, but here it is. This is the pattern that I was using. And you can see if I go to window patterns, these are brand new as well. I was able to drop these in and use them as well. Just waiting for it. Thing is spinning a little bit. It's like spinning. Wait for it. There we go. Patterns. Here we are. Another case where the stuff was given to us for free. I have this one I could use. I have these branches. I have these trees. Even more dense trees. So I could really open up a whole world sort of like underneath her face. Just kind of depends on which way I want to go. In this case, I just used these pattern trees. And what did I do? I took the initial image and let's turn off some of these layer effects. I'm going to do this really fast. Boom, boom. What do we do? I would easily use a number of things. I would probably use the pen tool. So Command P, or excuse me, just hit P. Come over here, let's outline this like we were doing on the iPad. I think the iPad was super easy when it came to selecting. I want to be a little bit more exact when I'm creating this particular shape. And that's what I want to do, is I actually want to switch this to shape. I think it's going to serve me better. Actually, let's undo that. There we go. Okay, so here's this face. We'll go into layer, vector mask, and we'll use the current path as a vector mask. Boom, it's done. Disregard that bevel and emboss on it. But this is nice. Now I still have this path that I can actually manipulate later on. And it's all consolidated onto like one layer. So I could have had a shape layer underneath, but I'd rather use this vector path. And it has other properties that make it even better, by the way, but I won't get into those. Because I'm trying to keep my professional edge, so I can't tell you everything. Just kidding. It's just going to take too long to explain. Right, so there we have it. There's one, right? We have the face again. We could do the same thing. Command J, boom. Come in here. Let's get rid of this bevel and emboss. P for pen. Tell me how everybody's doing. Yeah, the iPads these days are actually, of course, super fast. You know, the whole idea of your phone being as fast as a computer you used to work on. It's the same idea. All right, drawing this out. Since I'm doing some compositing, I want to match the depth. So let's click right here. Let's make this happen fast. I don't have much time. Let's take a look. I have about 5 minutes. Vector mask, current path, boom. We did the same thing we did down here. There it is. What do we want to do? We want to add a little bit of a bevel and emboss onto that, right? That's one thing we can try, right? We can try some of these stuff out of the box. Some of these things out of the box look like they're out of the box. Like, this is not real life. Why is this so even? It shouldn't be so even, right? So I could try bevel and emboss. Seems to be kind of cool, but it just needs a lot. I need to do a lot more with it, right? I definitely do. For the sake of time, I can start it. Maybe I actually just want that highlight at the top, whatever the case may be. What I do want to do with this is I want to match the blurriness. So look, this is sharp. That's not going to work for me. I can take this layer. Actually, this is what I would do. I would convert it to a smart object. We'll go into filter. We'll go to blur gallery, and we'll do iris blur. Okay, so it's going to give me a circle. It's a circle blur is all it is, right? From there, we can move this up like so, shrink this down in size. There we go, and increase the blurriness. So we want to match the blurriness right over there, and it's already doing like a much better job. Okay, cool. That's what I want to do. This is in focus. That gets blurry. We got that squared away. Click OK. We're well on our way. Cool. All right. Come in here, add a new layer. B for brush. Checking time. Checking comments. If you're joining me on YouTube, come over to Behance because I'm having a hard time keeping track of all of the chat dialogues. All right. We're gonna steal some plants, okay? We're just gonna take all these flowers that are already cut out, and maybe we'll just use those really fast for the sake of time. Can you lock two eye layers so they stay even? You can lock the layers for sure. Yeah. Another thing I would do is I would actually just have that, the final image. I would keep that layer around. Sometimes I would probably put it on top and then adjust the transparency to see if everything lines up. Okay. All right. Wait for it. Wait for it. Just bringing over all these flowers so we don't have to cut them out. Just be so much easier. But what do we need to do? We need to match the color, the brightness, the light source, all that fun stuff. All right. Fun times. Let's grab a couple of these, drop them in. And wait for it. There it is. Okay, cool. That's fine. We're just going to use these two. Get rid of some of this stuff. So I just brought a couple of these in. Let's take this branch right here. Let's expand this out. Zoop. Like so. There it is. Bring it right over here. Notice how it's extra long. It's actually not fitting in there too well. Use good old Puppet Warp. So edit. Puppet Warp. All right, there it is, because guess what? I want to control how it bends. Adding these different pins, just like you do in After Effects, if you're familiar with After Effects. I can bend that up and have that kind of look like it's wrapping around. And I can look like it's going back into space, right? Back there further. Let's do Command T. When I do a Command T, it might temporarily disable the warping. Okay, just keep that in mind. We'll make that a little larger. We'll kind of move that over like so. We will add a blur to it like we were doing earlier. Blur gallery, iris blur. Big thank you for Jason for diving into this next. You can see right here we have that blurriness. It's everything we just did, right? You get it. It's just doing more of it, right? Some simple compositing. Again, we did some work on the iPad. We went over kind of the fundamentals of just coloring initially with my first photo. But love Cara Delevingne. I don't know. I don't think this is her, by the way. But I love Cara Delevingne. I think she's amazing. On the eyes, right? Adding some different color treatments as well. You could see how everything's put together. But I'm running out of time. I'm down to my last 15 or so seconds. I want to thank you guys for hanging out with me. Hopefully you didn't feel like this was too rushed. I'm going to post this to Instagram soon. And Brandy, you are too kind. I'm open to suggestions if you want to learn something. Up next, doing some audio, which is going to be super cool. Thanks for hanging out.